hey girls, this is Team Leader Wife Training. And what I said a minute ago is if you're new into the Sojourner mission, you'll find out if you have an idea and you suggest it to the co-directors and they think it's a pretty good idea, they will implement that idea. And since it was yours, you get to do it. And once you've done something once, you will likely get to do it again. Because I got an email from Jim several months ago, and he's like, hey Linda, you did the Team Leader Wife Training last year. We got really good feedback about that class, so let's do it again. Can you do that? And I was like, of course. So anyway, I appreciated his, him letting me do this again. Before I get into that, I just want to say how this came about. I mentioned this if you were in the class last year, there might be some repetitiveness, but I also want to introduce my friend Kay. If you don't know her, she is going to help me. I've had some ragweed issues, and so my throat last night after singing for an hour and a half, I didn't know if I would even be able to talk today, and I'm doing okay, but Kay's going to step up and do the second half of the class. There's 2 pages. One is before the sojourn, and the other is during the sojourn, so it's pretty, and this probably should be an after the sojourn, but I don't know, we didn't do that, maybe next year. What inspired this? When I'm asked to do it again, we'll say, Kay Little did that. I'm Linda Fulkerson, I'm sorry. Anyway, y'all may or may not know that, but I didn't want to be presumptuous like you knew who I was, I'm sorry. So, when Dawn was training to be a team leader, we went on the sojourn, and Belinda Headley and Oscar, and Belinda's not in the room. Last year she was in the room when we did this. Oscar and Belinda were the team leaders for that, and it was like our first time that Dawn was in training to be a team leader, so he was a co-team leader. And there was another couple, they live in Florida, they're not here at this time, and they were also team leaders in training. And their names were Jim and Colleen Greenfield, I'm sorry, but they're not here. I have a really good friend named Colleen Coble, and I always say the wrong name. Anyway, so Jim and Colleen were also training. And Belinda, she's so sweet. If y'all have not met her, you track her down and you love on that woman. She almost died last year, and we're just so blessed she's doing well. So Belinda said, all right, girls, I need to talk to y'all how to be team leader wives. Because we just thought, we didn't think there was anything, we didn't know that because we were brand new. And I think we may have been on one sojourn at this point, and somebody decided that we all needed to learn how to be team leaders, so the guys trained. And I think you have to go on 3 sojourns as a team leader, as a co-leader to train. And you need to do it with different leaders because you're going to learn something, and we still learn something on every sojourn. This is starting our 6th year, so there's a lot of ladies in this room who have been sojourners a lot longer than I have, and should probably be teaching this class, but I was the one who thought of it. So Belinda took Colleen and I aside, and she goes, I'm going to teach y'all how to be team leader wives. And I was like, oh, okay. And I thought the only thing you had to do is be married to the team leader. But she said, first thing you got to do when you're going to be a team leader wife is learn how to drive a golf cart. Y'all are supposed to laugh. Okay. And she wasn't kidding because I had never driven a golf cart before. And the first place we were on was Camp Wiregrass in southern Alabama. And at one time it was a golf course. It's a beautiful church camp now. So we drove those little golf carts everywhere. And I got really good at it by the time. Belinda, however, is not that great of a golf cart. You know that no NASCAR thing? Okay, so what we're going to do is do this in 2 parts. And if you have a question in the middle or whatever, feel free to raise your hand and ask. We don't want to go over on time. I'm going to start with the first page, things to do before the sojourn. And then Kay Little is going to get up and do the second page, things during the sojourn. And none of this is more important than the other. This is just a bunch of things that Nadine Huddleston and I brainstormed. Her husband, you may have heard one of the co-directors mention him. He's a former co-director. He resigned from that to be an elder in their congregation. So Nadine and I have been on many sojourns together, and Kay and I have as well. So we decided, Nadine and I brainstormed this. They reported it, and I took the comments and questions from the end of the last session and added that information to what we started with. And we'll probably do the same thing next year, whoever's going to teach it. So the first thing you need to do, there is an actual guideline booklet for team leaders. And your husband may or may not want to read that. But somebody needs to know the rules and the guidelines. And these are set forth by the elders and the co-directors. And they're for the safety of the sojourners and for the entity. So there's just a lot of guidelines. You need to find that. You can download it on the website. If you log into Sims, I'm sure you've heard this, but I'm going to repeat it. There's 2 tabs at the top, and one of them says information. If you click on that, it's just like, wow, look at all the cool things that are in this website. So you do have to log in the member area to access that information. So you need to also be familiar with the Sojourner Policies and Procedures document. And there is a section within that, and it's in section 1.4 about team and leader and co-team leaders. So you need to be familiar with both of those documents first of all before you get started as a team leader. And then you also need to be familiar with how to input reports into Sims. And because I don't know about your husband, but mine, he knows how to look at his email, and he knows how to scroll through Facebook, and he knows how to find motorcycle videos on YouTube. That's pretty much the limit of his computer skills. So when it comes to Sims, that's my job, and that will likely be your job, unless he just really likes to do stuff like that. Most men don't. Most of them are, I don't know anything about plumbing. He does. He can fix plumbing stuff, but I know how to work a computer. So I get to do the Sims stuff. Because you are a team with your husband on sojourns as well as in life. So the first thing you need to do, once you know who's on there, you need to compile a list of your team members and get their contact information. There's a church directory app. How many of you are familiar with that? Or maybe how many are not? If you're not familiar with that and you're new, it's an app you can put on your phone, and it will show you all the sojourners, their email address, their birthdays, their anniversaries, their phone numbers. It's very handy. So if you don't have that, find out from somebody who's been around a while how to get that on your phone. Let's see. So you need to compile a list of the team leaders with their contact information. And you need to gather information. This is probably one of the most important things on here. Gather information about the area where your sojourn is going to be. The grocery stores, clinics, hospitals, laundry facilities, churches, places of interest, etc. And make up kind of a welcome packet. This does not have to be fancy. You don't have to go into Photoshop or Canva and make it look all cute. It can just be typed up like this. But, like area churches, maybe look up the times. And it doesn't hurt to call, because some places I've learned to never update their website. And you show up, we showed up at one congregation, it wasn't there. And, then you've got 7 minutes before worship starts, and you've got to try to figure out where the church is, or the church building, and, things like that. So find all that out ahead of time. And your entity contact will be a good person. Usually, if they're busy and they can't do it for you, they find out who can. And a lot of people, laundry can be a big issue. We went one place, and actually the Central Florida Bible Camp, they have like 2 washers and dryers, and there's 70 rigs can park there. And so where are you going to do laundry? And it's expensive to do laundry in Florida. We found that out. It was like $70 in a couple of weeks just on laundry. And now we have a little washing machine inside our rig, but we didn't until we lived there. Anyway, everybody doesn't have a beautiful laundry facility like we do here at Camp Mead. So find all of that information ahead of time. And then if there's some places of interest, it's kind of nice. Some people like to do a little vacay while they're on their sojourn. You're going to have an extra weekend in the middle usually. Usually sojourns are 2 weeks, and there's a weekend in the middle where you don't have anything planned. And so some people like to go around and do the toury thing. Stay in contact with your team members as a sojourn approaches, and find out the emergency contact information and record that with your team information. Kind of make a little folder for each sojourn that you're going to be on. We haven't been sojourners too long. This is kind of, I guess, what happened that got me in the idea to do this team leader life training. One year we did, it was 2 years ago, we did 8 sojourns, and Dawn was team leader on 6 of them. And so I learned a whole lot that year. And I thought, there's a lot of things that I didn't know that I had wished I had known. So that kind of got this seed, planted this seed. Anyway, you need the emergency contact information. Most of the time the office will have it, but if it's a serious emergency, you don't want to wait, and the office may not be open at that time, so you need to have that information ahead of time. So heaven forbid something bad happened, but you want to be able to call whoever they want you to call. And then, let's see. Also find out if any of your team members have any health concerns ahead of time, because you don't want to get them involved with work that's going to hurt them. And a lot of, especially men, you know, they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. And then 911, what's your emergency? So and you also need to find out what they can and can't do and what they will and won't do. There's a difference between can and can't and will and won't. I was at a sojourn one time, and there was an old outdoor chapel, and it was a beautiful old structure. I like old things, and it was full of bat guano. And so one of the things the entity requested was that we gear up and get one of those leaf blowers and get rid of the bat guano. One of the ladies on the sojourn, I don't do excrement. And I was like, okay. So I get out there with a lady who's, I don't know how old she is now, because that's been several years ago. She's still living and still probably out there actively sojourning. She was 84. And do y'all know Betty Bryan? Y'all know her? She's from Florida. You may not know her. Anyway, so here we are, Betty and me, with our leaf blowers, and we're out there, and then she goes, oh, honey, I got to sit down a minute. And I was like, okay. And we sit down, and I'm like, are you okay, Miss Betty? And she said, oh, I'm fine. She goes, but I got a big aneurysm right here, and if it blows, there's nothing you can do about it. I was like, well, maybe you don't need to be out here in the, you know. Anyway, we got the chapel cleaned up, and Miss Betty, I was thinking, not on my watch. So try to find out if there's things that people might, you know, a lot of people are right out of hip surgery or shoulder surgery. I've learned more about pacemakers since I've been a sojourner, and hearing aids. I'm like, okay, thank you, Lord, because when it's my turn to get to those things, I'll know who to ask. So anyway, just find out what they can and can't do if there's any health information, and get that information ahead of time if possible, and get good directions. I know somebody who had a big Class A rig, and they had a tow behind it, and they've downsized since, but they went on a sojourn, and they found out that there was a big dip thing, and they could not. There was no other way to get to that church camp. And it was Jim and Irene, and they weren't able to do that sojourn. They could not get their rig there. And so, my voice is getting close to done, okay? Excuse me. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't bring water either, so get good directions, and if they're, pardon?
I thought about something I've already drunk out of.
It's okay. I'll be all right. I'll just cough a little. I've got it.
This one is not from direct.
Pardon? Oh, you have a fresh one. You're awesome. Thank you.
Not much.
Hey, that's all right. I just need a slog. Just a minute. This ragweed, I don't know. I don't understand why some things were created. My daddy always said, don't question God, so I'm not questioning, I'm just curious. Thank you. So get the information ahead of time about directions. You know, it's really good when you talk to the entity, and a lot of times your husbands will do this, but you may have to do some of this too. But make sure if he hasn't done it, just ask him. Because we've been told, okay, the GPS is going to take you to gate number 1, but you really need to go to gate number 2, because that's where the rigs are going to pull in. And so just things like that you'll need to know ahead of time. Excuse me. Okay, I'm going to talk about this, if my voice will hold out. According to our policies and procedures, the sojourners, we pay the entity. They don't require it. The sojourner mission, well, I guess it's more of a suggestion, but it's kind of a requirement. We don't want to cause them any financial hardship. It's like a gift to them from the sojourner mission and from us as individual sojourners to help get their facilities. Obviously, they don't have the funding to hire it done, or they wouldn't be requesting sojourners. Okay, so there is, we need to pay for our camping fees, obviously, and they may not have a quote camping fee. So if you're not sure, the suggested rate I think is $15 a night. You can check on that for me if you don't, but I think that's about right.
Pardon? Larry asked that question in the team leaders meeting, and Chris was back, it said $15.
$15. Okay, so $15 a night is a good suggestion. If they say, oh, don't worry about it, we'll just estimate however many days you're going to stay and $15 a day. Then if you wish to gift more for that, that's fine. If you want to give them a contribution on top of your fees, none of that is demanded. However, and we were on a sojourn, and Dawn was team leader, and there was a couple who did not realize they were going to need to write a check. And there were hurt feelings over it. And so we don't want that situation. Kind of make sure your people understand that ahead of time, because this was a sad situation. I don't even think that couple is sojourning anymore, and it was very, very sad, and it got blasted on Facebook. It was kind of hard, and so it's been taken care of. The co-directors have contacted them, and it's all okay now. But we were kind of shocked, because it is in the policies and procedures that we're to be, and we were trained that way, but so somebody didn't educate that couple, and it was sad. Yes, ma'am.
A lot of places feed us quite a lot too. And
Yes.
so we take that into consideration.
Exactly, that's a
And you
very
can take
good,
it off your income tax.
yeah. So,
And if they provide laundry facilities, I always think just like what it can't be.
right,
Using their washer and dryer, that's electricity and money that they're out for me to wash my personal laundry. I put it.
yeah, add that on there. Just us, we usually, whatever it is that we estimate that we've used, we just tack on some more money on there too, just for the, the fun of it. Obviously, we believe in the ministry that they are doing, or we wouldn't have selected those places to go. We personally like to go to church camps for a lot of reasons. A lot of kids, they may not be able to go to worship service, but a lot of times their parents will let them go to camp with a friend. Maybe a lot of them, that's their first introduction to Jesus. Both of our kids loved going to camp, and they've both been counselors as young adults, and our dogs get to roam around. They like going to church camps, where if you're in the city at a school, it's harder, for them. So that's just our personal choices, and everybody will find things. So that's a very important thing. You just want to make sure that your team members are informed. I think good communication and good information, just because we know something, we can't assume that I'd rather hear something 3 times than not hear it at all. So that's just something to think about when you're out there. And then this is another thing that we learned when Kay was with me on that sojourn the hard way. We got there, and I think Nancy might have been on that same sojourn. The guy was like, oh, I didn't think about the women, And they had no clue what he wanted us to do. So he had his administrative assistant pulled from her office, bless her heart, and she just got put in charge, and she was our cruise director. And every day that poor girl had to figure out what we needed to do.
Wow.
And she would give us something And she's like, okay, so this should probably take you about 3 days. And about 6 hours later, we're done because we're sojourners. And then she's trying to figure out what we need to do. So that's another thing, maybe when your husband is contacting the entity, make sure to ask him to have a good plan for the ladies, for them to have something to do. And then get a prioritized list as well, so that we'll know what's the most important thing. And then I've never been on a sojourn with a VBS, but find out exactly how you're going to be helped, if you're going to be doing all of it, if you need to bring all the supplies, because we don't want to have to be running to Walmart and spend a lot of money there at the end.
Just assume you need to bring everything.
Yes.
We were 2 BBSs, we were told, oh, y'all are just 2 big Fulkerson overseers and hand out punch and cookies. Both places we got to, they had no materials, no decorations. They had not done any advertising. And we had to spend the weekend advertising, figuring out a theme and lessons, buying materials from the Dollar Tree and whatever, and putting it on. So if you're doing a BBS, they may say, we don't need anything. Take things that you can do a mini BBS with you.
All right.
I have a BBS box.
Oh,
It stays in my closet that has, if I sign up for a BBS, that box will go with me and I'll replenish it to make sure it has everything in it that I need, including office supplies.
that's a great idea. Thank you, Eloise.
I'm going to have to speak up for Cushing, Texas. This is a congregation of about 30 people, but there was a woman that was the contact person. And so I communicated with her, and they were amazing. Because we worked up our lessons and everything, but they did a lot of wonderful things themselves. So I have to say, it's not always that.
But have a VBS tote in case. Just
Good idea.
And then also, somebody mentioned about providing meals. Find out ahead of time what the entity plans to do. You don't want to beg and say, oh, you're going to feed us, but find out a nice way to ask them if there's anything, like when we go to a children's home, a lot of times the house parents will want us to come in and meet the kids, and they'll provide a meal. Some places provide lunch, some do it maybe once a week, some do it every day. So just find out what they're going to provide. Always take your snacks anyway. We always take snacks and the game box and all the things that the team we have. I don't have this on the list, but usually the group will want to play cards or something. So we have our game. It's a small duffel bag. It's got pegs and jokers and hand and foot stuff and all the things. And 5 crowns, and I don't know, the games that sojourners play. It's kind of like the reindeer games, the sojourner games. We got that in a little go bag. So I didn't have that on the list, but we take that whenever we're sojourning. And we also take, and this isn't on the list either, a crate of songbooks. So let's see. Arrive early and check out things. Maybe find where the local congregation is, or where Walmart is, or where urgent care is. Because sometimes things change. People, like I said, they don't always update their Facebook pages or their websites with directions and worship times. And be familiar and have on hand all the forms that you're going to need. You want to get an entity. I know they can go log on, or not log on, but they can download a form, a request form to come back the next year. It's always nice for your husband to hand them a form and say, here, we'd like to come back next year if you need anything, and let them have that form on hand. And then they have an evaluation form, and we have an evaluation form. So there's all of those forms. You can print those off out of Sims. One thing I like to do is set up a group text with all the team members, and I usually do a separate one for the girls, because sometimes we're going to have a fun night or maybe a block party type of thing. And so we want to, the guys don't care who's going to bring the guacamole, they just want to eat. So kind of have that set up ahead of time. And then any supplies that you need, then somebody last year in the comments said bring rags, because some people may never have rags, and you won't know when you're going to need them. And then, last thing, I'm about to make this through here, I think. we have a dry erase board that we like to take, and, or something similar, we have a small one, we usually use it for prayer requests, because everybody, there's always something going on. We've been on a sojourn where a close family member had someone who lost a close family member, their son-in-law died suddenly without, it was like a diabetic shock thing, it was not planned, they didn't know that the young man was going to die, it was very tragic and hard. So there, you never know what's going to happen. So you want to make sure that you have a prayer request board. And we also like to, if we have a whiteboard with all the tasks from the entity, and then when we have our morning devotionals, we cross off the things we did the day before and have a huge celebration. Like everybody claps, like Stephanie and Eloise, they just finished cleaning out the clothing room, woo, and we woo-hoo and praise him for that. So anything, y'all have any questions on this before Kay comes up and does the second part?
Have thank you cards, birthday cards, sympathy cards, get well cards.
That's on page 2, I think, right? But yes, yeah, I guess that should be on page 1 because you need to take it with you. Yes, all kinds of cards. We have a card box in our rig too. So, I thought I had that on there. Maybe, yeah. On the back on your card. Sorry, but you need to know that ahead of time. Yes, ma'am.
Check and see if there's grocery stores, because we went to Imperial and went to St. Francis. They didn't have grocery stores. We had a Dollar General, so you need to buy a few things.
That's true. So, we've gone on sojourns where you're 40 miles from a Walmart. Or grocery, or anything. You're 40 miles from anything.
Yeah,
Even a cell tower.
that information can be in what you send out.
Yeah.
People know ahead of time.
Okay.
How far they are from a Walmart.
And also weather. While we were in Imperial, there's possibility of tornadoes, so we had to look for tornado shelters, what county we were in, so we knew what to listen for.
Exactly. That's good. We've been in some close calls with tornadoes that we weren't hurt, but you want to know where the storm shelter is on campus. Yes.
It helps if you find out which county you're in.
That's what I was
They
gonna say.
save the counties.
You don't know.
Yeah, I've lived in Marshall, Texas over a year, and I don't know the zip code yet. I'm sorry, y'all. But anyway, I can Google it, right? All right,
I have one more thing. From a caretaker's point of view, it was always very helpful if you directed the team leader to say something like, if you have a problem or an issue or you need something, to go to the team leader first instead of going straight to the caretaker. Because then the caretaker gets bombarded by 25, 30 requests a day, and some of them should have gone to the team leader first.
Okay. And I'm just going to talk a lot about communication with the team leader too in part 2, because, that's a good point. If there's something like that needs to be done, but a lot of people, sometimes, you're hot, you're tired, and it happens sometimes, and Kay's going to address that too. That's not what you were bringing up, but that's something else. Here, do you want these ear things?
No.
I don't know how to do this. Hang on, I'm going to get this off. Maybe you can just hold it then. I don't know. This is not good. Here, you can just hold that. I could have done that. Okay. I'm going to. All right. It's all about. Thank you for.
Okay, and without continually interrupting, I do have a few thoughts to add to this first page. One thing is when you send this email out to your team with all of upcoming information and where different places are, all that sort of stuff that she mentioned here, getting information. When you send an email out, it's a good idea to send a text message saying, check your email, you're getting some information, because this is too much to go in a text, and very often people don't check their email very often. So we've had people, get to the sojourn and say, oh, we didn't know we needed to bring paint clothes, well, it was in the email. But make sure they see the email. Okay, and another thing, when the entity fills fills out their evaluation sheet that goes to the office here, they will have to put a project number on that. And this was mentioned at the team leader meeting the other day, but if you were not with your husband for that meeting, when you go to Sam's, when it lists every sojourn, this is your sojourn. Your husband's a team leader. Here's your team. Over in the left-hand corner is a number, and that's the number that goes to that particular sojourn. So you will be, going in there later on and or you or your husband doing the team report afterwards. But the entity, when they do their evaluation sheet, they will need that number. So make sure you've got that number and that you or your husband give that number to the entity so they will have it. Let's see, and on forms, I was going to say that if you are helping with a door knocking campaign, there may be other forms that you'd like to have to use. And we usually like to just carry master copies of things that we might be needing instead of, running off all the copies ahead of time. But like if you're going door knocking, there's a sheet that's very helpful that the ones going out can record what homes they went to, what street they were on, whether they met anybody there, if they had a prayer request, if they had a study. And so I call it a street sheet. That's something that's nice to have. To fill out, if people have prayer requests that you meet when you are door knocking, like a prayer request form, when you can fill that out, and you can even tell the people, we will put you on our sojourner prayer list. Our team will also be praying for you. And then if there's a follow-up, someone that maybe you've had a study with or you feel like might not be wanting one right then, but it would be good for the church members to follow up with, there's a form for that, follow-up, where you are writing down a particular person or couple and their address and what you found out about them, and that you leave that with the congregation where they can go back and follow up, hopefully, have a study and get to know them better. All right. I think that's it. All right, so let's move on to during the sojourn. Linda's already mentioned getting emergency contact, but if you haven't done that, do that at the very beginning. We usually have a team leader meeting like the day before we start, on Sunday afternoon, something like that. And so we get everybody's name and their emergency contact list. And I think it's a good idea to have it where not just you can get to it. What if you're in one of the emergencies? What if people at the place where you're working are the ones that need to contact somebody? What if you are all out working and something happens here? So that list, it would be a good idea to have it where somebody else besides just the team leader sees it. So get your list together. First thing. Okay, now let's just read down the list, and you're welcome to make comments, give some additional tips. If possible, have a task board. You've already mentioned that. Dry erase board. Be sure and have your dry erase markers with you to show the task, and then also one for your prayer list. Always good. You start off every morning with a devotional, and to me, that's the best part of the day. So you like to have your prayer, your prayer request on your board that your person who's leading the prayer can be praying for those particular people. Keep a notebook handy. Good idea. Be flexible. Have a good attitude if the entity changes things, which that can happen. Right. So flexibility is a key word for learners. Things don't always go exactly like you're expecting them to, so that's all right. And we will say that the entity is always right, just like the customer is always right. be honest with the entity about what you can and cannot do. Now, you probably know, we don't do roofs, right? And there may be some things that you yourself, or you know your ladies that are on the team might not can do heavy work. So better to just be upfront, be honest. Okay, keep track of daily statistics for the work report. That's an important one. I remember the first time that Larry was team leader, this just kind of blew me away. I start filling out the work report at the end, and it's asking, how many doors were knocked? How many hours were spent? You know, how many work hours were there? And so I started kind of estimating. There's no way you can get exact work hours. But you've got, okay, we're going to work from 10 to 12 in the mornings and from 1 to 4 in the afternoons. And however many people are there working, you multiply that. So you work 6 hours, but you've got 6 people working, that's 36 work hours that you put down. And on the work report, they're going to ask you the total number of hours. But I don't think they care if it's just exact. I would say an estimate. But you want to keep up with those statistics as you go along, because you're not going to remember it later on. The number of brochures handed out, the number of Bible studies, and then if you're doing other kind of work, still you want to keep up with the number of work hours. Because really what the elders and the co-directors, they're wanting to be able to see how much money we have saved the entity by volunteering our work and not have to pay anybody. Now they do buy their supplies. If they're asking you to do something that requires materials, we're not expected to go out and buy all that. The entity will do that. But we're doing volunteer work, and so we're saving them a lot of money that way.
Sometimes you don't get to do it the way you think it might be best to do.
But it's the entity that's always right.
And you should repeat that as a
Yes, that is very important, because you have on your team, you might have a licensed electrician, and the caretaker is saying doing it like this, and the licensed electrician is like, you have to do it like that.
You might make a
That is so
suggestion,
hard. Yes.
but it's like going to a foreign country. You know, you're not going in and say, I'm a big American, and you got to do it like I want to. Oh, we're here to do this and this and this. It's we're here, and what do you need us to do? Of course, they've already requested on the request form, but we're going there to help them. We're not going in there to be the big head honcho.
So you're saying that a licensed plumber that goes in here has to do it the way the entity wants it, even if it goes against code?
That's not what she said. Okay, so we did have a situation with a plumber, and the entity, they had bought all the plumbing supplies that they thought were gonna need. Basically, this church camp was in an area that should not have had a hard freeze, but it did. And so they had to pretty much replumb a lot of the camp. And we were blessed, Rich Fairservice was with us, he's a plumber. But all the things that they had bought weren't gonna work. And so then a whole day and a half was spent with him making a list and estimating what we would need, and they had to take all of that equipment that the entity had purchased, return it, and then so it's not that they won't listen to a licensed plumber, and it won't go against code. They can't do that. That's not what she is saying.
Right.
It's just sometimes they think they know, but they might not be the expert. And you just have to be gracious in a way. Of course, I don't know how many of y'all know Rich. He was just like, well, that ain't gonna work. So, I mean,
Well, and if they just.
And he was
the
right,
man
and then they
just-
just pretty much said, okay, and they went together, the contact person went with Rich, and they purchased the correct stuff. So if you know it's not gonna work the way, and our team, our sojourners are so talented. We have so many really, really talented people in the mission group. So I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
would say most of the time it can be smoothed out.
Yeah,
I mean.
Yeah, you just have to just say, okay, well, but it must be within code because a lot of our people are no longer licensed and maybe they're retired, but somebody's gonna have to sign off on that unless it's out in the country. So it's got to be done to code.
Speaking of licenses, you have to be licensed in that state to do it though.
It
From
depends.
my understanding is that you have to be, if you're licensed in one state, you can't go to another state and do it unless you're licensed there. That's my understanding.
What, electrical work and plumbing work?
Every state is different.
Right.
It might be good to find
I don't know
out.
how
Okay,
it works.
All right, so
This is
like,
something else whole.
every state is different, but typically the entity will have somebody who will sign off on the work that's done, like whether it's plumbing or electrical work or whatever. And that's another thing, your team leader, if there's going to be extensive plumbing or electrical work done that needs a licensed contractor to sign off on, then they need to make sure that that's done so that it can be inspected by that person. We've worked at places where our sojourner team did a lot of electrical work, but there was a licensed electrician that was a member of the local congregation. They came and checked everything and signed it. All that was set up ahead of time. Another thing a team leader needs to check on that wasn't on our list.
There's not gonna be a whole lot of that.
Usually you don't have to rewire and replumb. Usually it's painting.
Lighting and painting.
Pressure
Pressure washing.
washing.
Pressure washing and painting, that's what.
Cleaning.
All right, let's see. Sorry, that's all right. Encourage team members throughout the sojourn. Check on your team members often. Make sure they have everything they need. Good idea. Take scheduled breaks and let the team know when and where those breaks will be. If a team member needs additional rest, let them know that is fine. We are all volunteers.
Okay, Larry has the scheduled breaks, he doesn't force people to take them. But if you don't schedule them, somebody who really needs to take a break may not take it because if nobody else did.
Right.
And also, and I kind of had to work with Larry on this, Larry's a real, okay, 5 minutes break, I'm ready to, and I'm like, Larry, some people need more rest than you do, and break time is a team building time where you're chatting and you're doing stuff together, and that builds the team bonding experience. And finally, one day he says, you're right. So now, instead of 5 minutes, he'll stay 10 minutes. But anyway,
And that's important. I'd say one of the good things about being a sojourner is mostly older folks. So, it's okay if you need to stop even in an extra time.
it is older folks, but as I get older and these new green dots come in, Anna Neal,
Hard to keep up.
She doesn't count, she's in her
Well,
fifties.
there's even older people like that as well. You've got those who goes, and he's in his 80s.
Joe Jones, if y'all know him, he's 91, and he still goes and does sojourns and does disaster relief.
We really need to encourage people to take a break and to stay hydrated. Yes, it's another thing.
One thing I was going to say, a lot of times what I've done is on that group text, I'll say 5 minutes till break time and send it out. And then if they want a break, they'll know, okay, it's almost break time. I forgot to put that on.
We like to have snacks and water, especially. Yeah, water. And a lot of times the entity will supply you with water, but if not, and it's not that you have to purchase all of the snacks and all the water. You might want to let your team know. Anybody want to bring snacks, we'll have them here for when we have our breaks. But water is a real important thing. during the summertime, it gets real hot, you know, they have to encourage people or encourage your husband to say, we don't need to be out this heat. Like at Hatch, we had to just not go out as much when we were out inviting people to do the gas. It's just too hot. All right, anything else there? Plan a get-together or a night out for fellowship with the group. So that's kind of up to you and the other ladies with you.
It's my laundry.
We'll excuse you. You gotta pull them out of the dryer before they wrinkle up. Yeah, which could be get-together, kind of like our block parties are, or going out to eat somewhere. And you could be in charge of that, or you might ask somebody else if they want to, if they know places to eat that are good.
I just want to say this, also be budget aware for your team. We were with a sojourn and we had a blast, but the team leader, every night we went out to eat and they were not all cheap places. Like we were dropping $50 a night for supper. And so after about the third time, Dawn just had to quietly say to the team leader, we love this fellowship, but we can't afford this. And I know there's other people who are probably in a worse situation than we are. So, you know, if you're going to have an outing, don't drop $50 a night for supper, because most of the sojourners can't afford that. Some can, but
Right.
a lot can't.
That's
Most can't.
Suggestion, good deal. Next, most concerns, complaints, and complaints should be shared with the team leader. Shield your husband from petty issues that can be resolved without involving him.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. Try to dispel any negativity immediately. So, okay. Always ask before borrowing someone else's supplies. Okay, good. Okay, here's one that I'm not good at doing this. Take photos of activities that work during the sojourn that you can post on Facebook. Some of the ladies are good about doing
Or
that.
assign someone, ask someone to do
Right,
that.
right. Because active and inactive sojourners, they enjoy looking at it. And you're right, it might cause somebody else to want to look into that sojourn for later on.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's good for recruitment. If there's a sojourn that your husband is team leader on, like a lot, like every year, then if you make it look like it's super fun, then everybody will want to go. And then next year when that rolls around, everybody's like, oh yeah, I saw those pictures. How many of you who are new know we have a private Facebook group? And if you don't know about that, then let us know. We'll show you how to get on that. So, yeah, and it's good for recruiting.
Yeah, okay, good idea. Next, give some type of thank you gift to team members. Small gift or thank you card. This is optional, but nice to do, just to show your appreciation. And you're not expected to spend a lot of money on anything like this. If you're crafty, you may have a little craft that you want to give, or just a thank you note. I know Pam Medford spent, I don't know how much time writing thank you notes to us at Rainbow and Megan. Wow, that meant a lot. So, just something like that. Also, usually the entity has done, has been hospitable to us and kind, and just a thank you note that is signed by the team and given to the entity is nice. So to have that on hand with you when you go.
Real quick, thank you note thing. And just be aware, especially if you're new, the Burleson elders pray for each specific sojourn. And I think they pray for the people by name who are on those sojourn. And you will get a thank you note from the Burleson elders. They'll go to the team leader, and that we usually read that during one of the morning devotionals. And it's just really nice to get that card and knowing that our leaders are praying for us while we're out there.
And it specifically mentions the place where you
place,
are.
right.
And it is personally signed by each one of the elders.
And I just think that we're so blessed with this eldership that oversees the mission. especially those of you who are new and aren't realizing how involved they are with sojourners.
And it's special to have one of the elders as a sojourner.
We got a green dot. We got one.
Okay, next, if you see something that needs to be done but isn't on the entity's request list, and if you have time, ask your contact person if it's okay to do that. Some entities may have scheduled other work teams to perform specific tasks, so it's always best to ask before doing instead of just saying, okay, we're here, this is what we're going to do, or you see something and you do it, and it may not be what they want done, or they may have somebody else that's coming to do that. All right. Most sojourn work schedules are Monday through Thursday, and then we have a long weekend, usually about 6 hours a day. Others may not go according to a typical schedule, so be flexible. Right. Sometimes it's activity on the weekend, and you need to work on Friday or Saturday, so be flexible.
We showed up Friday one time for a sojourn that was supposed to start on Monday. Our contact person was out of town, out of state, forgot about us, literally. And it was the first time.
I thought you were coming.
It was the first time so entity, okay? And they had a family wedding and they were out of state for the wedding. And so Dawn called to check on something about where to hook up. And the guy's like, oh, that's this right now? And we're not gonna be home till Tuesday.
Oh.
And so here comes our team rolling in, and the entity guy called one of the elders from the local congregation. It was a church camp. They came and they turned on the power to the sites and all the things, because that guy was on the board of directors for the camp. So we were blessed, but we lived an hour away, so we had to kind of hang out and wait. And so they're like, well, just hang out until Tuesday.
So you pull out your gun?
Well, you know, we were, I won't say who it was, but it was in a state that had, there were a lot of things to do around there. We went to some state park things, and we did some other things. I mean, I don't want to talk about because they're a great entity, and they've been sojourning there for several years now, but this was their first time. And the guy, I mean, just forgot.
Well, I had a new experience this year. We went to a children's home, and everybody was gone to Lance the Leader's convention. And so they had a few cows, a few horses. And so one of these cows had given birth to a calf, and she wouldn't have anything to do with it. And the calf was just about to die. And donkey actually is the one that licked all the afterbirth off of the calf. And so they had a vet out, and they were having to follow feed. Well, they were all going to be gone, so they were wondering, could some of us until we get back? So, I got a picture I can show you.
Flexible.
Yeah, every so many hours, you know, through the weekend.
And he's doing well. I saw him not long ago.
He's a big fella now. Yeah, and the donkey usually is close by too. They're buddies. All right. Have fun. Yeah. Remember, everything we do is for the purpose of serving others, glorifying God. Also, we're on this donation, and I'm calling it an optional donation. Some people might not be able to afford even to give very much of a donation, or just give a donation because they spend a lot of money getting there and all. So be very conscious of how you bring that up, that we're not expecting everybody to do it, we're not expecting everybody to give $15 a day, that stress that is suggested. Let's say, because a lot of people want to know, well, give me an idea of what it should be. Let's say $10 to $15 a day, because you're needing to help the people that are going to be paying extra for electricity and water, especially while you've been there. Now, if you've been at an RV park, that's different. But usually we're where the entity is on their property, and they're going to be paying extra for those things. But we have to be conscious of, our people. And so you can have envelopes with you, maybe. You can tell the people, of course, your husband will be telling them, that they can personally give their donation if they want to give one to the entity. Or here's envelopes, you can put what you want to so nobody else will see it in the envelope. And maybe you could have a large envelope that all of those go into and they're handed to the entity. But just be very conscious of that.
This was brought up in the team leaders meeting, but a lot of you weren't there, and maybe some of your husbands weren't there. There is travel fund from the Sojourner Mission that the elders have set aside. And one time when we were looking at the board, it was that year we did so many sojourns. We live in Arkansas, and Lisbon, Ohio, which is way up close to Cleveland, takes you 3 days to get there from where we live. We did apply for that funding, and they'll pay for about half of the estimated cost. We had to estimate what our truck got miles per gallon and lodging along the way, because we stopped at 2 campgrounds along the way, and we submitted a budget. And within a week, we got a check from the Sojourner Mission for half of the money. And I just want y'all to be aware, if there's one that's far away as you're signing up for these, I think that may be for the team leader only. I don't know how that goes, or maybe it's for everybody. Okay, so it's for everybody. So if there's an entity that's far off from you and you want to go help and serve there, and it's a little out of your budget, because, like I said, we live 3 days drive from Northeast Ohio. And so, but they didn't get selected last year. So my husband's like, I don't want them to not get selected because there's not a team leader. But that was out of our budget. So we did apply, and within a week, we got approved and got a check in the mail. So that money is there, and a lot of people don't even know about it, because there was some guys in the team leader meeting, they had never heard it. It probably is in the policies and procedures manual. I'm not sure about that, but it probably should be. I think it probably is. So be familiar with those documents.
We did that when we made our excursion up to Alaska 2 summers ago.
Right. Because that's an expensive trip. So some people don't need that money, and that's fine, but sometimes you do. Like I said, that year we did 8 sojourns, so we were kind of strapped, but we didn't want that. When it said we didn't get selected last year and had a little frowny face, we didn't want to do that again, when we knew we could, but we just needed a little help.
I know our whole congregation, they consider what we do as part of their mission work. And so if we're going on a very long trip, like when we went out to New Mexico, I'm not talking about this, close by or even coming to Candide, but long trips, they have given us money to help with gas.
I have a question about lunchtime. I know when we first started trying to lead sojourns, the lunch hour would be like an hour and a half or 2 hours to give everybody a rest. But then, like at Camp Yamhill, they provide lunch right in the middle of that hour and a half time. So we really had to explain the reason why we shortened the lunch period. Because if we gave 12:30 to 2, then you don't have much, you're working too much in the morning and not enough time in the afternoon. So that's a question to ask the entity when the lunchtime is, or you want to try to give everybody an hour and a half is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not always possible.
Okay. And sometimes if everybody's fixing their own lunches, sometimes the group gets together. That's kind of according to, they cook in the kitchen there, don't they?
Yeah.
One of the other places, they get in the kitchen and fix lunch for the whole team. I've never been on one like that.
We take a nap. We eat and we take a nap every lunch, for a 20-minute nap. And that really helps. And my husband, even now, he's like, man, he still takes a nap at lunch. And I think people who are around the camp full time know, Dawn's probably asleep during lunchtime. And it's okay. But we just kind of tell our team, hey, we take naps during lunch. So if it's a if it's an emergency, knock on our door, text us. But if it's not, just wait till 1:30.
Yeah, we don't want anybody to feel bad if they need to have this.
Right.
Or if they're getting too hot and they need to stop.
Yes.
We don't want people getting sick, have a heat stroke or whatever. Okay, any tips?
Question. How does all this work on the disaster relief? Team leader and all,
What do you mean disaster relief?
when you go on a,
The disaster relief is
It's a
a separate entity, it's not a part of.
Separate mission, yeah, we don't do that.
So there are sojourners that would go with the
Like
Churches
does.
of Christ Disaster Relief Group, so
Yes.
you would be finding out from them what they need.
It's a separate mission.
You can just look them up online, and contact information.
I didn't find the websites, you just
Well,
apply.
there's at least what, three, at least three
two, I know,
different
three,
groups.
I know there's two, for sure.
Okay, is that Ohio?
And there's one in Tennessee. Yeah, they're separate from Sojourner. That's a.
But a lot of sojourners, they will ask, sojourners if you can, if you want to, come and
yeah, there's a lot on the email, on the newsletter about it.
Okay, so they're just letting, that's just for information, if you're interested in helping. So that email that we get every Thursday, sometimes there'll be things that aren't specific to Sojourners on there that Sojourners may wish to help with. Okay, but it's for information. But we're not really affiliated, although we're all working together to help people.
Yes, it's the opportunity to help out.
Where is the Churches of Christ in that?
Oh, we're 1 minute over,
Yes,
so
that's in Nashville.
thank you all for
Churches of
your.
Christ Disaster Relief. In Nashville. They're one place that Manhattan's International is about 3 blocks away. Thank you, ladies.